International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, is on a state visit to Slovenia on the invitation of his Slovenian counterpart, Mrs. Nataša Pirc-Maso. The Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Mr. Brahim Borali, is in Jakarta, Indonesia, to take part in the 19th session of the Conference of the Parliamentary Union of Member States of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The United States and China have agreed to temporarily suspend most tariffs on each other's goods, and in a move that shows a major thriving of trade tensions between the two sides. Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. I'm Mariam Bershi. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, is on a state visit to Slovenia. This visit comes at the invitation of his Slovenian counterpart, Mrs. Nataša Pirc-Maso. Earlier, the Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Hattaf, has received a telephone call from the Minister of International Relations of Venezuela, Evangel Pinto. The two parties examined the privileged bilateral relations existing between the two countries, notably in the political and economic fields. The two ministers held the increased dynamism characterizing these relations in line with the guidelines laid down by the two countries' leaders. They also exchanged views on the preparations for the next meeting of the Algerian-Venezuelan Joint Cooperation Commission, scheduled for this summer in Algiers. The Algerian authorities have requested the charge d'affaires of the French embassy in Algeria that the French officials who have been assigned in irregular conditions be immediately repatriated to their country of origin. Al-Shabakar has the details.
Summoning the French diplomat reportedly came after the observation of blatant and repeated failures by the French side to comply with established procedures regarding the assignment of officials to French diplomatic and consular missions in Algeria. Recently, the relevant Algerian services reportedly noted the assignment of no fewer than 15 French agents to carry out diplomatic or consular duties, having not been subjected to prior official notifications or appropriate accreditation requests as required by current procedures. These agents previously holding service passports were granted diplomatic passports to further facilitate their entry into Algeria. The list included 2 agents of the French Interior Ministry who were clearly intended to partially replace those recently declared persona non grata. These assignments, irregular in light of the usual procedures observed so far by both countries in accordance with international conventions and diplomatic practice, occurred at a time when Algerian nationals holding diplomatic passports were denied access to French territory, and 2 consuls general appointed to the Paris and Marseille posts and 7 other consuls have been waiting for accreditation from the French authorities for more than 5 months. Consequently, the Algerian authorities have requested that all French agents assigned under irregular conditions be immediately repatriated to their country.
Still in Algiers, the President of the Constitutional Court, Mr. Omar Berhaj, has received a delegation from the Constitutional Court of the Zimbabwe, led by the Chief Justice and President of the Constitutional and Supreme Courts, Mr. Luck Malaba. Ms. Hodge-Harfi has more details in this report.
The two parties discussed ways and means of promoting cooperation and consultation between the Algerian and the Zimbabwean constitutional courts in the various areas of constitutional justice, notably within the framework of the Conference of African Constitutional Courts. They examined ways of strengthening institutional cooperation and the exchange of expertise. During a presentation made at the headquarters of the Conference of African Constitutional Courts, CICC, the Permanent Secretary General of the conference, Mr. Moussa Larba, highlighted Algeria's important role in promoting constitutional culture on a continental scale, stressing Algeria's experience in constitutional practice as part of the constitutional diplomacy conducted by the Constitutional Court through the African Organization of Constitutional Courts. He added that Algeria, thanks to its glorious revolution and honorable history, is a symbol for nations fighting to recover freedom and independence, stressing that his country and Algeria share the same values and principles on which the CACC is based, namely the protection of human rights, the consecration of democratic values, and the consolidation of the rule of law.
The Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Mr. Rahim Boghali, is in Jakarta, Indonesia, to take part in the 19th session of the Conference of the Parliamentary Union of the Member States and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The 19th conference will be held under the theme The Union's Silver Jubilee, Good Governance and Strong Institutions, the Foundation for Resilience. The session, to last until the 15th of this month, will be preceded by meetings of the Union's Executive Committee, General Committee, Specialized Standing Committees, and Arab and African and Asian groups. The Secretary of State to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in charge of the national community abroad, Mr. Sofyan Shayib, has held talks with the head of mission of the International Organization for Migration, IOM, Mrs. Lanini Verasamy, on a visit to Algeria. During the meeting, they examined the various areas of cooperation between the IOM and Algeria. Discussions focused on ways of strengthening partnership, notably in support of national priorities, aimed at mobilizing and enhancing the involvement of the Algerian community abroad in the country's development efforts. The IOM head of mission highlighted the role that the organization can play by contributing with its technical expertise and knowledge of international best practice in mobilizing diasporas. She also suggested the organization of a training workshop led by the IOM experts to explore the most effective mechanisms for strengthening links between the Algerian diaspora and national development initiatives. Moving to the situation in Palestine, new airstrikes carried out by the Israeli army against the Gaza Strip killed at least 15 Palestinians, including 5 children. The news agency Wafa said that several others were wounded in the attack, which targeted a school sheltering displaced in Jabalia in the northern part of the territory. This came as efforts are underway to try and secure a ceasefire in the war-torn territory. In this respect, the spokesman of the Palestinian Hamas movement, Youssef Hamdan, expressed the movement's readiness to do its utmost to pave the way for the enforcement of a ceasefire. He announced the release today of a US-born hostage as a gesture of goodwill to allow for the lifting of the blockade imposed on Gaza.
The movement has had contacts with the American administration over the past few days and obviously showed a high level of positivity and responsibility. In this context, the US-born Israeli soldier Eden Alexander will be released as part of the steps taken to secure a ceasefire, open the crossing points, and allow in the entry of humanitarian aid to relieve our people in the Gaza Strip. The movement is ready to immediately begin intensive negotiations and make serious efforts to reach a final agreement to end the war, agree to a mutually accepted prisoner exchange, and ensure the administration of the Gaza Strip by an independent party that guarantees lasting stability for many years, along with the reconstruction of the territory and the lifting of the blockade imposed on our Palestinian people.
That was the spokesman of the Palestinian Hamas movement, Youssef Hamdan. A coalition of around 100 French associations has called for rallies to be staged across all fronts from May 15th to 18th to mark the 77th anniversary of the Nakba or catastrophe, coinciding with the displacement of the Palestinian population. The rallies are carried out pressing for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, as well as sanctions against the Israeli occupying power, which is carrying out a war of extermination against the Palestinian people in continuation of the Nakba. More details in this report by Masoud Sharfi.
Emphasizing that May 15, 2025 marks the 77th anniversary of the Nakba, when in 1948 nearly 800,000 Palestinians were forcibly displaced, their descendants still deprived today of their right to return. The coalition affirms that the same process is unfolding today against the population of Gaza and the West Bank. Since the ceasefire was unilaterally violated by the Israeli occupying power, in Gaza famine is clearly being used as a weapon of of war, defying all rules of international law. The coalition of French associations highlights that no aid had entered Gaza since March 2nd and that a humanitarian boat was attacked in international waters. It says that a genocide is taking place in Gaza, recognized as such by the International Court of Justice and major human rights groups, and condemns the Israeli plan to seize Gaza and expel its inhabitants. The coalition blames decades of impunity and repeated violations of international law, including in Lebanon and Syria, for the current crisis. It calls for an immediate and unconditional resumption of humanitarian aid and an end to massacres and the annexation of the West Bank, a permanent ceasefire, sanctions against Israel, and the implementation of the UN resolution adopted on September 18, 2024, calling for an end to occupation. It also urges France to immediately and unconditionally recognize the state of Palestine and support refugees' right to return.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Several cases of abductions and attacks on politicians opposed to the transitional military authorities in Mali have occurred over the past 48 hours as the country is rocked by an unprecedented protest movement demanding, among other things, a return to constitutional order in Bamako. The crisis in Mali stems from the decision taken on Wednesday by the current military authorities to suspend all political activities in the country and grant a 5-year presidential term without elections to the transitional president, General Assimi Goïta. The coup regime has resorted to kidnappings and attacks on politicians to cut off the protest movement and stifle any dissenting voices. These sources cite in particular El-Bashir Thiam, a young activist from the Yelema party, who was kidnapped a few days ago in Kati, a town near Bamako and a stronghold of the ruling military. Shortly before the suspension of political activities in the country, the abducted had organized a meeting with women from Kati to discuss respect for rights and for the constitution, during which he denounced what he called an infinite transition. On the same day, Alassane Abbas, Secretary General of the Codem Party and Vice President of the Jigiya Kura New Hope opposition coalition, was abducted from his home in Bamako. Human Rights Watch denounced the disappearance of the two opponents, who it said are part of the political parties that have been trying for several weeks to make their voices heard against Assimi Goïta's junta. The US and China have agreed to temporarily suspend most tariffs on each other's goods in a move that shows a major thawing of trade tensions between the two sides. More details in this report by Asia Bakar.
The trade agreement means that reciprocal tariffs between both countries will be cut from 125% to 10%. The breakthrough comes after US and China trade representatives held high-stakes talks in Switzerland over the weekend. US Treasury Secretary said an agreement had been reached on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels. Both sides on the reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 115%. The pause will begin on Wednesday. Both China and the US said they will continue discussions on economic and trade policy. Since returning to the White House in January, US President Donald Trump has launched a flurry of trade measures that jolted financial markets and increased recession fears. The duties, which are designed to narrow the US trade deficit, hit China particularly hard. Trump had imposed tariffs of up to 145% on Chinese imports, prompting Beijing to respond with retaliatory curbs of its own, including restrictions on some rare earth elements.
Fresh talks between Iranian and US negotiators to resolve disputes over Tehran's nuclear program ended in Oman, with further negotiation planned. Though Tehran and Washington both have said they prefer diplomacy to resolve the decades-long nuclear dispute, they remain deeply divided on several aspects that negotiators will have to circumvent to reach a new nuclear deal and avert future military action. The Iranian Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, and the American envoy for the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, held the forefront of talks in Muscat through Omani mediators, despite Washington taking a tough stance in public that what the Iranian officials said would not help the negotiations. Araghchi said that the talks were more serious and more straightforward compared to the previous 3 rounds. He added that both parties now have a better understanding of each other and hope to make further progress moving forward, adding that Iran's uranium enrichment must continue, although its scope and level may change. A senior official from President Donald Trump's administration said that direct and indirect discussions lasted more than 3 hours. In Germany, thousands of Germans protested across more than 60 cities demanding a ban on the far-right Alternative for Germany AfD party, with 4,000 to 7,500 rallying near Berlin's Brandenburg Gate alone. Organisers urged Germany's new government, led by Chancellor Friedrich Merz, to initiate proceedings in the Federal Constitutional Court to outlaw the AfD party, the country's largest opposition party, framing the issue as a legal rather than political matter. Let's note that a few days before the swearing-in ceremony of the new Chancellor Friedrich Merz, the Domestic Intelligence Services classified the AfD party as a far-right-wing extremist who could represent a danger to the democratic order. Back to the country, an international conference on climate change and its impacts is taking place in the western city of Oran, here in Algeria. Amina Borisha reports.
In his opening speech, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Transport, Abdelghani Dridi, representing the Minister of Transport, Said Sayyoud, stated that the African continent is one of the most vulnerable affected by extreme climate phenomena, such as drought, desertification, floods, rise sea levels, intense heat waves, and climate-related diseases. He added that these growing climate challenges require from all of us, as African countries and international partners, that we collaborate our efforts and unite our visions to face up to such phenomena and their consequences. He highlighted that having accurate and reliable information on these changes constitute a foundation for any effective strategy of adapting to and reducing their effects. The 3 days conference brings together experts and academics from different Algerian universities, as well as from Tunisia and Senegal. It includes a series of conferences, notably on the physical, chemical, and biological priorities of soils in the face of climate change. On the sidelines of the meeting, 3 agreements were signed between the Oran Precipitation Monitoring Institute for Training and Research and the National Meteorological Office, the Space Technical Center, and the International Association of Water Resources in the Mediterranean Basin based in Tunisia.
And now a reminder of today's top stories. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, is on a state visit to Slovenia on the invitation of his Slovenian counterpart, Mrs. Natasha Pirc-Massar. The Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Mr. Brahim Borali, is in Jakarta, Indonesia, to take part in the 19th session of the Conference of the Parliamentary Union of Member States of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The US and China have agreed to temporarily suspend most tariffs on each other's goods in a move that shows a major thawing of trade tensions between the two sides. That's it for today's news bulletin. Stay tuned on Radio Algeria International.
Hello and welcome to our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. First in the news, the CEO of the Sonelgaz Group, Mourad Ajel, has met with the CEO of the Lebanese company Matelec, Sami Saghir, to discuss partnership opportunities in the manufacture of electrical transformers, a group press release said. The meeting was part of Sonelgaz's efforts to expand its international partnerships and encourage foreign investment in Algeria, notably in the electrical equipment industry, the statement said. 19 pending projects of subsidized promotional housing LPA have been relaunched through the Public Procurement Guarantee Fund CGMP, said in Algiers the Minister of Housing, Urban Planning and the City, Mohamed Tarek Bellaribi. At a plenary session of the National People's Assembly, APN, Tarek Bellaribi reported that after having decided to use the CGMP in order to relaunch pending LPA projects, a first operation was launched covering 19 projects spread across various provinces. The objective is to complete them without additional financial burdens on the beneficiaries. The Director General of the Algerian Investment Promotion Agency, API Omar Rikash, has received the engineer Said bin Salim Al Hajri, founder and CEO of the Omani-based company United Business, and Dr. Ibrahim Al Ismaili, CEO of the United Integrated Laboratories, according to an agency release. The meeting allowed to examine ways and means of achieving a promising investment project in Algeria, says the same source. On this occasion, Mr. Al Hajiri expressed his interest in the Algerian market and his willingness to contribute to the national economic dynamic. In more Algerian economic news, the national airline company Air Algérie has signed a partnership agreement with Touring Voyage Algérie aimed at strengthening their cooperation in the fields of air transport and tourism, the airline said in a press release. Through this initiative, the two partners are reaffirming their commitment to combine their efforts, pool their resources, and intensify their coordination with a view to creating new opportunities and contribute to the sustainable development of Algeria's tourism and transport sectors. A framework agreement has been signed in Algiers between the National Agency for Support and Development of Entrepreneurship, NESDA, and the Directorate of Agricultural Production under the Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Development and Fisheries for the creation of entrepreneurship development centers within agricultural training institutes and schools. The agreement aims to set up entrepreneurship development centers in 21 institutes and schools under the Ministry of Agriculture spread across the national territory with the aim of promoting entrepreneurial spirit among young people, students, trainees, and project leaders by training them in the acquisition of skills necessary for the creation and management of micro-enterprises while accompanying them on this path. The Chief Executive Officer of the National Mining and Research Corporation, SONAREM, Belkacem Sultani, has said in Algiers that the new development strategy of the public group places the local transformation of mineral resources among its priorities. This statement was made in a speech at the ceremony to mark the 59th anniversary of the nationalization of mines and the 58th anniversary of the creation of SONAREM, organized by the Ministry of Energy, Mines and Renewable Energies under the theme Exploitation of Mineral Resources towards Strengthening National Achievements. And to wrap it up, Algeria will be the guest of honor at the Free From and Specialty Food Expo 2025, due to be held on 17th and 18th June in Vienna, Austria, the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Export Promotion said in a press release. Economic operators working in the agri-food industries and agricultural products, notably healthy and organic products without additives, wishing to participate in this exhibition are invited to submit their applications and register via the electronic link dedicated, the ministry added. And with this, we come to the end of our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. Take care and bye-bye for now.
Hello and welcome to this new edition of your weekly program, The Health Magazine. World Asthma Day is celebrated on the 7th of May every year. Today, we're taking a deep breath and diving into the facts about asthma. What is it? What causes it? How to recognize it? And how it's treated. Whether you're living with asthma or know someone who is, this is a program for you, so stay tuned. Asthma is a chronic condition that affects the airways in your lungs. These airways can become inflamed, narrow, and filled with mucus, making it hard to breathe. Asthma isn't just a minor inconvenience. For some, it can be life-threatening. According to the World Health Organization, more than 260 million people suffer from asthma around the world. It affects all ages, though it often begins in childhood. Asthma is one of the most common chronic non-communicable diseases that affects over 260 million people around the world, as previously said, and is responsible for over 450,000 deaths each year worldwide. Most of these deaths are preventable if they are well managed and treated. In celebration of World Asthma Day 2025, the Global Initiative for Asthma, GINA, has chosen the theme Make Inhaled Treatments Accessible for All. The word asthma comes from the ancient Greek word for pantin that tells you just how long people have been battling this condition. So what causes asthma? Well, the truth is, we don't know exactly what triggers it in everyone, but several key factors play an important role. Genetics. If your parents have asthma or allergies, your risk increases. Environmental factors. Exposure to allergens like pollen, dust mites, mold, pet dander, and even cockroach droppings. Air pollution, cigarette smoke, car exhaust, and factory emissions can all trigger or worsen asthma. Respiratory infections, especially in early childhood, and occupational exposures. Certain jobs with dust, chemicals, or fumes can cause adult onset asthma. It is a mix of inherited and environmental factors, and in many cases we never identify a single cause. Recognizing asthma is key to managing it. Symptoms can vary from mild to severe. Here are the most common ones: shortness of breath, chest tightness or pain, wheezing, a whistling sound when you breathe, coughing, especially at night or early morning, and fatigue due to lack of oxygen. These symptoms can come and go. Sometimes they are triggered by exercise, cold air, strong emotions, or allergens. If you or your child have recurring symptoms, especially coughing at night or wheezing, it is time to talk to a healthcare professional. A more serious phase is the asthma attack. This happens when symptoms suddenly worsen. The airway tightens so much that it becomes difficult or impossible to breathe. The warning signs include gasping for air, blue lips or fingernails, trouble speaking in full sentences, and rapid breathing. Asthma attacks can be fatal if untreated. Always have an emergency action plan. And if someone is having a severe attack, call emergency services immediately. Asthma can't be cured, but it can be controlled. Here's how we can do that. Inhalers, reliever inhalers, like salbutamol, work quickly to open up the airways. Preventer inhalers, which are steroid-based, reduce inflammation over time. Lifestyle adjustments, avoid known triggers, keep indoor air clean, monitor air quality on high pollution days. Medication plans, work with a doctor to create a personalized asthma action plan. Stick to it even when you're feeling well. Education, know the early signs of flare-ups. Train family and friends to help in emergencies. Asthma control means fewer symptoms, better sleep, and a more active life. Millions of people with asthma live full, active lives, including Olympic athletes, actors, and musicians. The key is the early diagnosis, proper treatment, and awareness. Don't ignore your symptoms, don't be afraid to ask for help, and remember, with the right care, asthma does not have to control your life. Thanks for joining us in this World Asthma Day. Take a deep breath and let's raise awareness together. Share this information, talk to your loved ones, and if you're dealing with symptoms, don't wait to see a doctor. See you next time, and bye-bye for now.
العالم يتغير وبسرعة، ونحن نتابع وبدقة نحاول الوصول إلى الحقيقة من مصدرها مباشرة. إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، صوتنا في العالم.